日本との開戦に伴い敵国人種となる日系人の排斥処置が取られたことで直ちに捕虜として拘束された人々、強制労働地送りとなった人々、多くの日系家族が離れ離れとなりました。この後、すべての日系人に対し出国または隔離施設への収容を問う選択が求められました。戦火での厳しい生活を強いられることを予想せず、カナダを離れ日本へ向かった人々、カナダ人として生活を続けてきた我が子のことを思い、隔離施設への収容を選択した人々、過酷ながらもカナダにとどまれるならと BC 州を離れ異なる地で新たな生活を見出そうとした人々、残されたわずかな時間にて人生を左右する大きな選択が人々に問われました。強制収容所が設置された土地は廃校に伴いゴーストタウン化した BC 州南東部の地、スローキャン、グリーンウッド、ニューデンバー、キャズロー、ローズベリー、サンダン、レモンクリーク、ホープの近郊地に設けられたタシメなどで、この際約1万2000人に達する日系人がそれぞれの地に隔離される事態となりました。戦後、各地の収容施設のほとんどが処分されてしまいましたが、ニューデンバーには資料館が設けられ、現在でもこの一部が維持されているため、当時の様子を間近に目にすることができます。
They were forced, moved here, lived in tents, built the houses out of the lumber cut in the communities, and then moved in. Now, to explain them, they're roughly 14 by 28, but very small, I guess, by today's standards, and I guess it differs on the number of people that lived in these built shacks, as we probably will call them. And they were basically divided into two halves with a common kitchen, eating area, and two bedrooms on either side. Now they're on site here. But there was another building built in here we call, I guess, a hospital. It was a TB sanatorium. It is in the community today, and it is now the old folks' home with the new hospital attached to it. And the sanatorium was built by the Japanese people that came here. It was a huge building. So New Denver was the site of this sanatorium at that time. The other thing, there was bathhouses here, and there was, because there was no running water in most of these buildings, no electricity. That didn't come in until probably the 54 when they rearranged them. There was some of them on the main highway where there was electricity. I guess they run the electricity. They run the power in one side and out the other. So if you hung a light bulb here, it was on, and if you were at the end of the line, it was just an orange glow. Because in those days, power seems to, as you use it, there's less and less on the end.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it was quite a shock for some of the people that moved into these shacks from Vancouver. I guess you hear stories, but we know people that lived in shacks all over BC. But I guess to me is they lived by choice then in those places. These people weren't forced to live here. And I think if you can, go in the bush like you're a trapper, live in a cabin, very basic, you choose to, and maybe it's not the same. If you came from Vancouver and you're a doctor, lawyer, and had suits and that, these houses were probably not too much suited for people wearing suits and that.
Relocated there for 4 years. Usually in a house, there were two families. Our family and another family was in the very small building, maybe 30 by 30, and two families were there.
And lucky for us, there was 7 of us that we were able to get 8 in the family. We got a house to ourselves. I remember as a kid that we never stayed in the house. We've always lived outside. Summer, winter, didn't matter. You never stayed in, it was too crowded.
They said we couldn't have a whole house because there were only 6 of us, and you had to be 7. So they said, like you to share it with this young family with a baby. And Mother was appalled.
Lemon Creek, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Lots of friends, lots of people, and my mom was at home.
Right.
You know, in the New Denver, they have that little house. And because we were only 5 people, and there was a double bunk bed, wooden double bunk with straw, and then the kitchen in between, and then there was another family living in the other side because, yeah, it's a family of 3. So it was hard on the parents, you know. I think it ruined their marriage, sort of, you know, it's just surprising, no privacy. But as kids, I think we had fun.
戦後も日系人には厳しい選択が引き続き求められました。人々は過去暮らしを培った土地へ戻ることは許されませんでした。各地の強制収容所は徐々に閉鎖され、日系人のハブ的な役割として残ったのはニューデンバーだけでした。
So now the government decided, what are we going to do with all these people? They were all brought to these internment camps, but now the war's over. There was no reason to keep them in these small communities. And now, for a multitude of reasons, one was a lot of professional people were in these little towns. What were they all going to do for a living? You know, doctors, lawyers, architects, you know. So in 1946, the government gave the people living in these internment villages 2 options. And it's a common phrase, go east of the Rockies or back to Japan. Now, those were 2 unusual choices, because most were from the West Coast. Vancouver was, or Vancouver Island, was where they came from. So that's where their interest was. But from what I understand, there was what they call a cooling off period. In other words, from 46 to 49, the only 2 options were those 2. They didn't want them going back to the West Coast. So a lot of the people took the option of going back east. Like, that's how the Japanese community, Toronto was a huge center, Montreal had a few, Winnipeg had a huge, Hamilton, a few in the prairie provinces, and Alberta had a few. But after the Japanese were moving out, there was a lot of these houses left, and some of them were empty, and the street layout was, this was not in a grid pattern as streets are. 1954 it happened.
Okay.
And the local village decided that, okay, they're going to expand the village into here. They came in here, laid out the blocks, the streets,
Right.
rearranged all these houses to face the streets, put septic tanks in,
Right.
run water to them. And the people that were living in the house, that house was deeded to them. So the last person in that house got the house. All these other people that came and went, they moved on. So the ones that stayed. So now the community was sort of one.
Yeah.
There was, you know, there was no more internment. It was all over, and people were moving all over the place, out of the village. But New Denver was a funnel, like a funnel, I think, because all the other places, they were closing, as they call it, closing down the camps,
Right.
getting rid of the evidence, or they didn't want any of the memories, like Lemon Creek, Tashme,
Right.
they burnt, bulldozed, got rid of it, because there's no community in some of these places.
Right.
They didn't need the buildings.
Wow.
They were not really buildings anyways.
Right.
New Denver, so they kept moving them to New Denver.
Okay.
They came here, went to Japan, they came here, went east, they came here, and so the houses were occupied and then they were empty. Another family came in. So New Denver was probably, and is, well, there's other communities, but New Denver was one of the last internment camps.
長年にわたり共和会により維持されてきたニューデンバーの日系インターメントメモリアルセンターは、現在は村の管理下にて運営が続けられています。小さなコミュニティの一角に残る貴重な資料館です。
In the 80s, the Kyowakai Society has always existed here in the community. It was here during the internment.
Okay.
It was the society made up of the Japanese Canadians. It was like social clubs or clubs that anybody has.
Right.
And it was probably to help people, like my mother probably didn't understand English. So she had a question, she would come to the society and say, you know, I have a problem. And they would work with them. And it was a social thing. Parties, come watch movies, do a lot of things. And the Kyowakai Society has existed all along. It is today. Unfortunately, the membership is very, very low. But in 1982 or so, I was asked to join the Kyowakai Society. I lived in the community all the time, but I guess when you're young, you don't have a lot of time to belong to societies and volunteer time to do things. You know, I was busy working, raising a family, trying to find things to do. And of course I found things to do, but it wasn't to volunteer to do things. Anyways, in '82, one of the ladies, the elder ladies in the community asked me to join because said, you know, our membership is very declining, and we need some younger people. I thought by then, you know, I can spend a little bit of time with them. So I went to the first meeting. First meeting, they all looked at me, and this lady said to me, oh, we got this young man now in the club, and he's going to be the new president. And I thought, oh, I come to the meeting to be a member. Oh, she said, you're a young man now, and we're getting old now, so, you know. So I accepted. 25 years later or so, I was still the president. Anyways, it was good. At that time, there was not an active society. So in 1988, I believe, is when the federal government, under Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, at that time they gave an official acknowledgement of a wrongdoing. And at that time there was a fund set aside, but I forgot exactly how many million, and to be administered by the Redress Foundation.
Right.
And that was funds set aside for projects across Canada to build seniors' homes, museums, plaques in different communities, anything that some of these communities had connections to the internment and so wished to do something.
Right.
And the building was starting to fall in. So this lady, the very nice lady that asked me to join the society, said, we should try and do something with that building. It needs repair. And the funds were available because, you know, like, you need money. So this started the wheels in motion. And at that time we had a fair large society with people quite concerned about what was happening, about all what was left. You know, everybody, I guess, at the same time didn't want memories of this too, we understand. Right. You know, some moved on.
Yeah.
Some moved on. This was where they came, this is where they had to be, but they moved on.
Right.
But anyways, a majority thought it was, you know, probably a majority thought it was a good idea to preserve some of the history, show the people what really happened, and educate them. So anyways, we applied for, well, we were going to apply for funding, and this was where we were going to start on. Because the Buddha Shrine, getting back to it, the BC government were quite interested in moving the shrine to Victoria to a museum. Because they knew it was here, because I don't know, through some government agencies. Right. And the lady said, no, no, it belongs in New Denver, not in Victoria in the museum. This is New Denver, because it was made by a Buddhist fella from Lemon Creek. Okay. He was quite a Buddhist, and he handmade all this with basic tools, basic what he had, and it's still used. So she said, no, no, it should stay here, which was fine. But she said, we'll try and fix the hall. So we applied to the Redress Foundation. I remember going before the board in Vancouver. There was, a board was made up, I believe, about 10 directors all across Canada. And they were going to decide on where the money was going to go. So home we came, hired a fellow architect and to design what we wanted. We got a model maker to make a model locally. Yeah. And we had this big model made, and next meeting I went back to, well, we forwarded our document. They said, oh, it looks very interesting, looks very good. Basically, we all favored in principle.
In August, we had to leave, and we went to Slocan, and houses weren't ready, so we lived in tents. And around October, we moved into Popoff. Well, by that time I was pregnant, but I lost my baby because conditions weren't, that great.
The only communication we had with our families and so forth were letters, and the letters were always delayed, even in English, because the Center of Enemy Language Publications had to check every one. And if they were in Japanese, well, then it took about 3 weeks longer for it to get to the thing. The other thing was, the censor's habit was that when they saw a part of a letter they didn't want to be moved on, they get a razor blade and cut it out, that section, maybe a half a sentence or a full sentence or a paragraph. Well, my friend Roy Ito, who ended up in the sugar beet farm with his family in Alberta, used to write to me from time to time, and one day a letter came with, on page 2, was a big chunk like this cut out, And the trouble was he had written on both sides of the page so that what was on the other side was hard to understand too in that part. So from there on, my first note on my letter back to him, Roy, please write on one side, the page only.
We landed in Lemon Creek, one of the internment camp, on September 2nd, 1942. Right. And there we were given the house. A lot of people are still in the tent because it wasn't completed, but we were given the house because my father was sick. And so we jammed into the house, and September wasn't too bad. We managed to cook our own meals, although a lot of things were, well, everybody was on, ration those days, so it was hard time for everybody. Yeah. But we managed, and then winter came, and it was so cold, and the tar paper shack with a nail sticking out, there'll be icicles streaking all over the place from top.
So when you say house, really?
It's a shack. It's a shack. Yeah, just with a board, and then there was tar paper on top, and the wall would be caked with ice when you can't stay up all night, put the fire on. Wow. So, anyways, it got worse and worse, and my father's health got worse and worse. Mm-hmm. And on December 1st, after 2.5 months, he passed away in Lemon Creek. And we managed to have a nice service for him, but when we asked the government, we don't want to leave Dad here, please cremate him. And they said, we don't have any place to cremate, so you go ahead and do it yourself. So Japanese being Japanese, they always obeyed the government or the police. We were told that when we were brought up. So the seniors, because most of the young people who were able to work were taken away from us. Mm-hmm. So the seniors got together and they went up on a mountain and they cut some trees down, and then they layered it this way, and they put his coffin on top and put some more logs on top of him, and paper and gasoline poured around it. And my mom took one match and lit it, and my dad went up in flame. And to watch that for a 12-year-old that's never seen funeral before, never seen anybody die before, it was the first time for me. It still haunts me. I still think about it when I see any kind of flame. I think of my father going up in flames.
戦争が終わり、収容所を離れ、人々は各々の道を進み始めました。悔やみながらも気を持ち直し、新たなる前進に踏み出すのでした。そしてこれを機に、日系人同士の寄り合いを避ける人々が増えてきました。
Every time I hear somebody's story, and everybody's story is different because every camp was different, so I learned so much from the people that come through here. So I'm always amazed at how much the people suffered and how still dignified they are and still forgiving, and it's like they've become a better people as a result of it all. And it's just amazing to see how much hardship these people of the Japanese Canadians went through, and yet they're still here and they're still very proud to be Canadian, and that whole, I'm in awe of how much they have bounced back and how much they have persevered in other endeavors when so much was taken away from them.
There's actually a gentleman couple that came through a few weeks ago, and they're a bit older, and he asked me, do you think that this could ever happen again? And I'm not entirely sure, but I'm kind of leaning towards, yeah, if there's an agenda and a powerful force behind it, then it's very easy that people can get wrapped up in kind of the hysteria of the time, and so I think that it's a possibility, of course, yeah. So places like this are really important so people don't forget, right? So.
And the shocking part is, I guess, what happened to their assets. You know, to me, I guess today it's the War Measure Act. I'm not sure how it reads, but I understand it's pretty much as it was then. The government has the authority, and I think maybe at times the government has certain things they want to do and they can do, but that was one thing that was in force then, it still is today. Whether it happened today again, it's not the same. So just getting back to it, what we have here is something to show what happened. We hope it doesn't happen again. It's not to show the bad, it's to show how it was. This is the way it was, and people can see and make their own judgment on what